This is the Healthy Business Podcast, the show for ambitious business owners who want to grow and scale in a healthy way. I'm Sarah Cook, and I'll be sharing with you tips, inspiration, and proven methods from leading business experts, entrepreneurs, and health and wellness professionals to help you grow your business with more income and having more impact, but in a way that works for you. Because when you have clarity and strategy, you can achieve the results you want. Hello, I'm going to be talking to you about using your personal story as part of your brand story and how we can use that in order to grow our audience and grow our client base. So much of what I'm going to be talking to you about is really about building this like, know and trust factor, because 85% of purchase decisions, whether that's bookings or product sales, are made on emotional situations, not logical decisions, then based on emotional situations. So that is why it's really important that we can show that we are relatable, that we can empathize with our clients, with our audience. And we do that by sharing elements of our story that are really relatable and show that we understand, because people buy from people. And this like, know and trust factor is super important. People want their problem solving. And that means they have to get vulnerable with us, but they also need to trust you before they're going to book with you or buy from you. So when we can share elements of our story, when we can really empathize with them, that is where the connection happens. And they know that they can come to you to help solve those problems. So it really is super important that we're writing our content and doing our marketing in a way that is relevant, but also really relatable and in a trustworthy way to our audience. So before I go into my 5 steps of how we can use our personal story with our content marketing, I want to share a little bit about me. So my background is that I've spent the last 15, 16 years working in marketing, working in sales, working in business strategy. I've worked on some of the biggest health brands in the world, and I've also worked on some small startup businesses as well. I'm also just like you, and I grew my business from 0 clients to fully booked within 6 months. So I've been in your position. I know what it's like from not having clients and really wanting clients. But when I used my knowledge and used my expertise of how I could grow that from my marketing and business experience, I was able to successfully grow that within 6 months and became fully booked. And I want to share with you some of that information today, because from that kind of personal story and that sort of information that you can share with your clients and why you've trained in what you have is really important to do it, because it shows that you can empathize. So for me, one of the reasons that I trained as a holistic health and massage therapist was that as an ex-athlete, so I've played a lot of sport, international level as well, and I really understand the benefits of holistic health. But having come from a corporate health background, I also understand the pharmaceutical benefits of health as well. And I've always just had this kind of passion for health and wellness. It's always been part of my career, and I've always wanted to combine health and wellness with business. So I've now translated that, and I now have a corporate health background. I also understand the pharmaceutical benefits of health as well. And I've always just had this kind of passion for health and wellness. It's always been part of my career, and I've always wanted to combine health and wellness with business. So I've now translated that, and I now help businesses grow and scale their businesses as well. So what I'm going to share today is 5 steps on how you can use your story, your personal story, your brand story, to really attract your audience, but also to nurture them to become paying clients. Because it's all well and good having this audience, but if they're not converting into paying clients, then you've got a really expensive hobby rather than a successful business. So today is really about sharing with you my 5 steps on how I grew my business, but also how I use my personal stories and elements of it in different ways to really connect with my audience and really drive them through my kind of marketing funnel to become paying clients. So just as a recap, the reason that I'm sharing this is because so many people's decisions are based on emotions. 85% of our purchase decisions are based on emotion. If you walk through a supermarket and you're on the jam aisle, what is it that makes you pick out a certain brand of jam rather than one sitting right next to it? So that's that connection that brand can create with you and have that emotional connection with you. Yes, obviously other things come into that, and price and things like that. But if you are attracted based on a brand and that person, so if you are your brand, you need to attract people based on you and what you stand for, so that people pick your jam versus somebody else's jam that's right next door. So that's what I'm going to share with you today, is my 5 steps on how to create your story, but also how you can use that within your content marketing. So first of all, you need to know who you are. So what are your brand values? What are your tone of voice? What's your language that you're going to use? You know, do you want to come across as approachable? Do you want to be authoritative? You know, how do you want to come across as that expert? You know, what does your brand stand for? And by brand, I don't just mean a logo. I mean, what is your whole kind of brand, your mission, your vision? What do you stand for? Because when you know that and you've got your deep rooted core, then you can create things around it that are super important, not just to you, but you also then attract your vibe. So I'm really keen on the idea of your vibe attracts your tribe. And it's so important that when you show up as you, as your authentic self, not only does it make things a lot easier because you're creating content that you're interested in, but also you're being totally authentic. And that's what people buy into. I mentioned earlier about being relevant, being relatable, and being trustworthy. And those 3 things are super important when you're creating content. But if you don't know who you stand for and what you stand for, then it becomes really tricky and we become stuck on what content we can create. So first of all, I want you to think about your brand and your wider part of your brand. So what is it? What do you stand for? What's your mission and your vision? What's your tone of voice? What's the language that you use? And that becomes super important because, as I said, you can then create content that speaks to you, but also speaks to the audience that you want to attract. Once you've got that, then I want you to think about your ideal client. And your ideal client is the person who you want to work with. It's not about who you think you should be working with. This is about who you want to work with. Who lights you up? You know, who do you look forward to seeing in their appointment? Who do you look forward to recommending products to? What is it about that person and that ideal client that makes them special? Because when you know that, then you can start really getting under the skin of them, really understanding who they are, asking questions to them, really understanding their problems, where their pain points are, what they're struggling with right now, because then you can work out how you can solve them. And again, this is about them. It's not about you. So yes, you might have trained in a certain niche, but you might need to package whatever it is in your services or products in a way that solves their problem. So it's not about having the services and the packages that work for you to a point. It's about solving their problem. Because when we lose our ego, when we put our client first, that is when the magic happens. And that's when we become a really successful business, because we're putting our clients right at the heart of our business and we're creating things that work for them in a way that they can consume or a way that they can have access to. So when you've got your ideal client, you've got their problems, that whatever they're struggling with, what I really want you to think about is, what is their journey? So they've got their problem, you've got the solution. How do they get to that point? What is the emotion that's tied up into that? And then they're not going to go from A to B straight overnight, potentially. So what is it that you need to take them through? What are the emotions that they need to get through to be able to have their problem solved? I like to look at it as a journey from hell to heaven, because then you get that extreme and that really brings in the emotion. So really think about the emotion that they're in right now. They're stuck, they're struggling, feeling potentially a lot of pain, whether it's emotional pain, whether it's physical pain, given that we're in the health and wellness world. What is it? What are the emotions? What's the language that they're using? What's the tone of voice that they're feeling within that version of hell for them? Then when you translate that into heaven, what does that look like? And it's a totally different set of language, but when you can use their language, when you can really understand it, you can get those words, that emotions all brought into it. That is when they convert, because you can understand them. You can understand where they are right now. You can provide that aspirational point of heaven for them. And you've understood the journey that they need to get there as well. So creating that is super important. Then once you've done your ideal client's journey and their story, I really want you to think about your story and just get it out. You know, go back as far as you need to, write out what's happened to you since whenever. It might be from a baby. You know, what is it that made you train in what you have trained in? Why are you practicing in the field that you are? What is it that makes it special? Because that is what makes you you. And we're all different. We're all unique. We've all got our own USPs. And it's about sharing that and explaining that, because that's what people buy into. As I said earlier, people buy from people. They don't want to necessarily know that you're a massage therapist that does the same as everything else. You know, what is it that makes you you? Why can you connect with them versus somebody else? And it's because of our story. It's because of the journey that we've been on. It's because of the emotion that we felt. We can resonate with them. So as an example, I specialise in sport rehab, and I specialise in prenatal and postnatal massage, because those are my two key areas of interest, but my experience, it's what I love helping people with. You know, being an ex-athlete, I was able to really understand. I had some really serious injuries and I had to learn to walk again. And I can share that. I know what it's like to be at that absolute depth of being told that I had to learn to walk again before I could be able to train again, before I could even run again. So I can go through that emotion and I can share that for those people who are having experience and need rehab from me and that sort of support from a massage perspective. Again, from a prenatal and postnatal perspective, being a mum of two little ones, I really knew the benefits of having a prenatal massage. I could never find one near me that really got into the areas that I wanted them to. I found that they would do their 3 strokes to the left, 3 strokes to the right. And it used to really frustrate me because they weren't listening to my needs. So again, I can share that, and I offer bespoke massage for people in that situation. It's not about doing a one approach fits all. For me, it's about tailoring my massage to that person and their needs. But I tell people that that's what I do. Again, same with postnatal massage. I've been there. I know what it's like to hold a baby. I know what it's like to be breastfeeding and having that shoulder ache, that lower back pain. And I can really bring that emotion into it because that's part of my story. That's part of my journey. And those are the people that I want to attract when I'm doing my massage clients. Yes, of course, I attract other people because word of mouth is there and because I'm talking about things. Other people who have other, treatments or requirements from a massage perspective, I'm not going to turn them away, but those are the people I want to work with. So those are my ideal clients. So when you start talking about your journey and your experience, people think, hey, do you know what? That's me. She's going to understand exactly how I'm feeling because she's told me she's been there before. So that is why your story becomes super important. And when you can weave that into your content marketing, when you can weave that into how you're talking to people, the emotion makes the difference. So really think about what your story is. What's the journey that you've been on? Where have you come from? Are there any moments where you've been in your version of hell and reached your version of heaven? Maybe it's a work in progress. That's okay too. Really think about where you are and what's important to you. Once you've done your ideal client, once you've done your story, then you can think about those crossover points. So as I was just saying, I can relate to people who are pregnant. I can relate to postnatal. I can relate to, athletes, or not even athletes, but people who are training for something that have had a sports injury and need that rehab support. I can help those people because I've got those crossover points. So I know when I've mapped out my ideal client and their journeys and the just differences that they want to achieve, I can do the same and I can cross those points and I know exactly how my story is going to relate to them. And I can use that within my marketing. I can use that when I'm talking to people, and I can use that not just to attract my audience, but I can use that when I'm nurturing them. When I'm at that point of wanting to convert them into buying from me or booking with me, that's the conversion point. So I really can use that emotion because I've been in their situation. So that's why you look at your crossover points. And do you know what? It doesn't have to be a kind of a hell or heaven version. It could be something that happens every day. And this is the really exciting thing about content marketing and your story. And actually, I think a lot of people get sort of bogged down about writing their story. And I don't mean writing a kind of a biography. Has something happened yesterday? Or, perhaps you were feeling a little bit blue. What did you do to go out there and make a difference? I love to go for a walk. And with my health and wellness practitioner clients, a lot of people feel overwhelmed. And I think especially, if you've got a lot going on, you're feeling really busy, then taking that break can be really hard. But if I'm telling people, do you know what, I felt really overwhelmed, it was Tuesday morning, and I just felt like my to-do list was kind of never ending. So I decided that I was going to go for a walk, got some fresh air, And do you know, it made a massive difference to not only how I felt, but I became more productive, I became more efficient with what I was doing. That's part of your story. So it can be the everyday moments that you can share with people that can resonate with them, but you're giving them a solution with that as well. So when you're writing your story, again, it doesn't need to be that sort of full biography. It really helps if you can look at your client's situation, work out where you've been and why you've trained and what you have, because there's a lot of emotion that's brought into that. And that language and that rich kind of deep words that you can use is super important, because that's when people connect with you. That's when people relate to you. And that's when people are going to convert into becoming your paying clients. So once you've done your brand, so that's the first step. Think about your brand, your values, your language, etc. Think about your ideal clients. You know, what are their problems? Look at their hell to heaven journey. Write your story. What's important to you? What's the emotions? What's the journey that you've been on? Even those everyday moments. Think about those crossover points and where your journey fits with your ideal clients, because that's when the magic happens. Those crossover points are so important, because it shows that you can empathize. It shows that you are willing to be vulnerable and share your story. And it really builds that like, know, and trust factor. And as I said, you don't need to go really deep with your emotion or your vulnerability points. It could just be something that's happened in an everyday. You're feeling, you're feeling overwhelmed, something simple that you can show your audience that you're feeling that too. And this is what you can do to help them with that, or give them a tip, give them an example. And then the fifth part, potentially the most important part, is how do we use all of that amazing stuff and convert that into content? So this is where we look at the language. This is where we look at how we can talk to our audience. So you have a headline, you're calling out to those people, and you're writing that headline. Then you go a little bit deeper to clarify who that person is and whether this person should be reading this post or email, whatever it is. Use their language. Don't use jargon. People don't necessarily need to know the names of muscles. If you're talking about shoulders and back, that's what the everyday person is going to recognize. So talk about shoulders and back. You don't need to use the complicated muscle names. Yes, it shows you as an expert, but actually people know that, which is why they're in your audience. They want to know that you can solve their problem. So keep it simple, keep it relevant, and keep it relatable. When you do that, that's when you can have that really brilliant conversation and really build that really strong relationship with your audience, as well as then moving towards that conversion. So I hope that's been helpful. As I said, that's my 5 steps to using your story, using your brand as a way to not just communicate what you do and how you do it, but also to build that like, know, and trust factor, to really communicate what you can do and how you can help people. So I'm going to recap that. So know your brand, know your client, know your story, know the crossover points, and work out how to write that content. Really, really simple 5 steps, because once you do that, I promise you it's going to lead to not just attracting the right people into your audience, you're going to be able to nurture them, you're going to be able to build a relationship with them to the point where they're then going to convert. Obviously, there's so many other parts to this, but using your story is so important, because it makes you relatable, it shows that you can empathize with them, and it shows that you are unique in understanding their key problem.
Thanks for listening to the Healthy Business Podcast. You can get a copy of my best-selling book, Healthy You, Wealthy Business, over on my website, sarahcookcoaching.com/book. In there, you'll find practical advice, useful tools, and real actionable steps to help you be your best self and build a wildly successful business with ease, so that you can create a limitless life in the way that you choose.